And I now use the term fascism. And I don't use that lightly because I know it's a loaded term. But if you look at what's happening in China today, a lot of the classic hallmarks of a fascist regime are starting to show themselves. So first of all, you have the worship of a central leader. If you listen to Chinese propaganda today, they celebrate Xi Jinping like he's the third pillar of this holy trinity. So they say under Mao, China stood up. Under Deng Xiaoping, China got rich. And under Xi Jinping, China is going to become mighty again. Hu Jintao and Jiang Zemin, I guess, are just forgotten. They're not even mentioned in this. But you see this extreme worship, and he has centralized power, of course, as no leader has since Mao. Another aspect is dialing up of hyper-nationalism, and not just like our country is great nationalism, but this idea of taking revenge on hostile foreign forces that disrupted the golden age of the nation, this golden age that the dear leader is going to eventually restore. You see these themes of national rejuvenation and recovering from the century of humiliation increasingly featuring in schools, in popular media, as well as in government documents. You also have the brutal repression of ethnic minorities. So Chinese documents increasingly describe the Uyghurs, other ethnic minorities, as a cancer that has to be cut out of the system before it infects the rest of the body politic. And you've seen the extreme measures that China has gone to in order to control these minority populations, the re-education camps, the bulldozing of traditional communities, and so on. You also have the development of this Orwellian surveillance state that can just track massive populations and then discipline people instantly by, if you do something wrong, maybe getting cut off from travel. And then if worse comes to worse, you can just send in the traditional authorities to crack heads. And then finally, this worship of military strength. And it's not just the parades and the goose stepping, it's more subtle things like the civil-military fusion concept, which is explicitly designed to erase the boundaries between civilian and military life. Any organization, any company can essentially be commandeered to serve the nation in a geopolitical or military sense. So at the same time, China also is developing a new economic strategy. And it seems to be one that is prioritizing leverage rather than just rapid growth. So I think the basic idea is, okay, our economy is not going to grow as fast as it did, but we can still get leverage over our trade partners by dominating what Chinese documents call the choke points of the global economy. So these are things that other countries can't live without, whether it's medical PPE or rare earths or certain types of computer chips or access to the South China Sea. There are certain strategic industries that China is looking to dominate, and you see that China pairing that with an increased willingness to impose sanctions on other countries. So for example, Australia calls for an investigation into where COVID came from, and China uses its economic leverage to basically wage a trade war against Australia. Now the Australians, in typical Australian fashion, kind of react with good humor. They sponsor this fight communism by buying Australian wine campaign, and then parliament members in other Western democracies kind of pick this up, and it's this sort of patriotic thing. But it shows that China is much more willing to adopt a mercantilist strategy to flex its muscles in reaction to the fact that it can no longer just buy off other countries through promises of rapid growth by partnering with China. And then finally, what worries me the most is this big military buildup. So China is engaged in the largest peacetime military buildup of any country since Nazi Germany. It's churning out warships and ammunition at an extremely rapid rate. You see that reflected in a huge increase in the military budget. So China still claims it only spends about $230 billion a year. American intelligence suggests it's almost 3 times that amount.